Welcome to How to Live Slow, the podcast where we discuss slow living for the modern woman and help you design an intentionally slower family life. I'm Rochelle Glendon, your personal slow living coach and host of this podcast. I know all about busy, but I love living slow. Enjoy the show. Hello, it's so great to have you here and I hope you're really well. Today's episode is all about how to live a valued life. My guest today is Laura Greenwood. She is a cognitive behaviour psychotherapist and she's in the UK. So she's been working for the NHS in mental health for the last 12 years. And just like so many of us, since she had her 2-year-old son, she's become really interested in the ways that we support mothers and seeing huge gaps in the current support system around what mothers really need to thrive. So it's so great to have her on the show today to talk about how to create a valued life, what that actually means, and where we can realign our lives so that we are living towards what our actual true values are. Because quite often it's, when we take a look, we're not actually living and that towards our values, and that's where a lot of uncomfort can come from. I know that you're going to really love this episode. Now, before I do, I just want to let you know that my winter retreat is coming up. The seasonal life is kicking off on the 1st of June, and we have our winter retreat on Tuesday, the 1st of June. You are so invited. It's not too late to join. So if you want to hop into the seasonal life, please go over to my website, howtoliveslow.com, and all the information is there and you can grab your seat. You can either come along to just the retreat or you can join us in the seasonal life for the full experience. I recommend that option, but either is fine. Otherwise, let's get into the show. Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's really lovely to chat with you.
Yes, thank you, Rochelle. So today, it's really lovely to connect with you from the other side of the world in the UK at a time when a lot of us haven't really been able to connect with a lot of people that we care about. And actually, I'm so thankful for technology and all it's been able to allow us to achieve, really. And, the fact that we can be talking to. So yeah, a little bit about me. I just wanted to say a little bit about my work and me as a person. So I'm a CBT therapist. I've been working within the field of mental health for 12 years now in the NHS here in the UK. I'm also a mum to my 2-year-old son. Since becoming a mum, I've really seen the huge gap in support for mothers going through the transition into and through motherhood. And it's really left me feeling quite pulled to be able to address that gap and to raise awareness of what I know you're aware of and a lot of your listeners will be aware of is matrescence. Provide the support and connection that mothers so greatly need within that experience of becoming a mother and through their motherhood experience. It's early days. I've started an Instagram and Facebook page which is around just normalising a lot of common motherhood experiences, thoughts, feelings, offering some of my tips and guidance as a therapist and as a mother myself to understand how you might manage some of those experiences and also provide support to mums that need it too. I think it's so important to break the myth of the supermom because we're all just doing our best. That is totally good enough. And the idea of the supermum really doesn't exist and the realities of motherhood and just recognise that we're all in the same boat really. And I suppose what I just want mums to be able to do is to really define what their own values are as a mother and as a woman and to learn to live by them in a way which means that they're not running themselves into the ground and in a way that works for their family. So that's what I'm hoping to achieve. Bit of a big mission, but I'm in it for the long term.
Beautiful. Yes, and I can imagine you've had a lot of first-hand experience being in mental health with the NHS and everything that's been happening in the UK over the last 12 months. It must be really heartbreaking in some ways.
People have really struggled. understandably, and I really just want to make it so clear that nobody is immune to struggles, nobody is immune to struggling, and we all need a little bit of extra support and guidance, at sometimes more so than others, and it's a challenging year for the UK, but also for the entire world. Yeah, we've been doing all that we can to help in as much way that we possibly can do.
Yeah, so that is what we're here to talk about today, really, is about how do you create a valued life. And this is something you talk about a lot, which is exactly why I want to chat with you today. So could you explain what it means from your perspective and some of the benefits for us and for our families?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important to define actually what we mean by values, because it isn't something that we talk about as part of everyday language to consider what we value, what we find most valuable in our life. And it's so common that it comes up with my work with clients that they don't really know what I mean when I bring up the idea of value. So I do often have to explain what exactly I mean by that. But essentially, what it means is what is important to you in your life, not about what you feel should be important based on the expectations set by other people around you or the expectations set by society. What you personally find important. And it's really vital to make that distinction. And it can take quite a lot of thinking about, because we are so conditioned to engage in a life that we feel we should be engaging in based on the values set by others or set by society. And values can take a few different forms, really. So what we value doing in our life, the people that we value within our life. So, for example, physical health and wellness, friends, family. But you also need to be quite specific about that. So, which friends and family are you talking about when you refer to them being one of your most important values? So you'll have a lot of friends and family within your life, but not all of them will be quite as important as others. But also your values are about what's important to you as a person. So, for example, one of my main values is my family, especially so my husband and my son. And then if I take that a step further, I also value being present with them and being my most authentic self with them. So that's a really good example of defining the value of family, and thinking about what family members are particularly important, and then in terms of you as a person, what you want to bring to that particular value too. So once you've considered your values and almost thought a little bit about what is most important, because there'll be a lot of things that you value in your life, but there'll be certain things that take priority. It's about considering then, well, am I actually living a life in accordance with them? Am I living a life in alignment with my values? Think about that day, that week, that month, that year even. And it is quite a routine process of checking in with yourself and reflecting, did I act in alignment with my values today? It doesn't have to be a really, really big task. It can just be 5 minutes at the end of the day where you just consider that about yourself and your life. But what I really want to stress here is it's really normal to acknowledge that we can't be in alignment with our values at all times. It's just not possible, often for reasons outside of your control. But sometimes being aware of that and understanding I'm not quite in alignment with my values at the moment because of something's going on in your life at that time, it can just help you to really understand the emotional experiences that you're going through at that time. And just recognizing, even in the face of external circumstances that you have no control over, how can you make small manageable changes within your life to move more to living a life in accordance with your values? The second part of your question, what are the benefits for us and our family? And huge. The benefits are absolutely huge. It is well known within cognitive behavioural therapy treatment for both anxiety and depression that living a life in accordance with your values significantly improves your mood and your emotional well-being. It's also a really useful way of helping to understand your emotional experience, understanding why you feel angry, annoyed, frustrated, passionate. So if you reflect and explore why you feel that way, it might be that you notice something's triggered you. Something's brought your values to the forefront. Something has occurred which is maybe out of sync with your values. So I'll just give some examples about what I mean by that. Within work, being asked to do something that makes you feel quite uncomfortable or quite angry about. It might be that that task is not in line with your personal values. With friends and family, you might struggle to connect with them and not really understand why. They seem like nice enough people. Why do I feel stressed, anxious, upset, angry when I'm around them? It might be that they've brought up a topic that goes against your value, or even that their value of what it means to be a friend or a sister or a family member, their value of friendship or family is different to yours. That doesn't mean their value is wrong. It just means that they define it differently to you. When we're in alignment with our values, the impact on our mood and well-being is so huge that it just ripples to everything and everyone around us. We just become much more content, more joyful, more present, and a better person to be around, really. And in turn, that impacts on their mood and their well-being as well. And I really do honestly believe that if you want to make happy, joyful children and families, it has to first start with you, because that's the only thing that you have complete control over.
Yeah, it is so true. And it's just, I feel that it's such a courageous thing to do, because quite a brave thing to say, I'm not living according to my values and I need to make some changes. And even just recognizing that, there can probably be a moment there where you feel maybe shame or something. I think it's really good that you take your clients through the process and help them, because having someone to hold your hand through that would be really, really special. So what are some of the ways you like to use with your clients to help them identify what their values are? Because often we just ignore our own values to help ourselves maybe cope. I don't know, I could be wrong there, but I feel like that's something that people would do. And yeah, how do you help them identify what the values are that they hold most highly and could potentially figure out what they value or what we value? What are some tips we could use?
Yeah, sure. And I think you're so right that it can be a really confronting experience to sit with your feelings, because in order to do this exercise, you've really got to go within. You've really got to explore your own thoughts and feelings and who am I? Who actually am I without the roles that I play, without the expectations set by others? And that can be really confronting and challenging for people. Like you mentioned, some really strong emotional experiences can come up for people, and actually going through that alone can be challenging. So actually being able, whether it's with a professional like a therapist or whether it be with a friend, this is a great exercise to do with a friend, somebody that you really, really trust and you can be fully honest with, so that they can really hold you when some of those emotions come up when you're doing this experience, because it's not easy. It's not easy, and I'm going to talk a little bit about later how living a valued life does not mean living an easy life at all, even with all the benefits. So how do I use this work with my clients? I always meet my clients where they're at. I mentioned earlier that it isn't something we really talk about. It isn't part of our everyday language to talk about values. Some clients know exactly what I mean when I talk about values and can talk about what's important to them really easily. They're quite aware of their values. Sometimes there's a little bit of work even with those clients around, but is that important to you, or is that something that you feel should be important to you? And kind of the part of the therapy relationship is about understanding that I am not in not there in any way to judge them, that actually what their values is their values, and I am not going to judge them for that or their experience. But some clients just have no idea at all. They don't know what I mean when I talk about values, and they have no idea where to start. And with these clients, I actually use a questionnaire, because it just gives us something concrete to focus on. It can sometimes take them away from being inside themselves and their own thoughts and feelings, which, as you mentioned, can be really, really confronting. So just to shoulder sit with somebody and just say, well, let's have a bit of a look at this together. It's called the Valued Living Questionnaire, and I'll send you a link so that you can share it with some of your listeners. The scores are irrelevant. It's not a questionnaire that it matters what you say on it or what scores you give to things. It just matters to open up the conversation. And the questionnaire gives a list of common values that people hold within their life. It's not exhaustive, so it does ask people to add their own if there's others that they also feel is important to them. It asks them to rate each of those areas on a scale of 0 to 10, so how important that value is to you. 0 being not at all important to me in my life, 10 being absolute of most importance, like top priority, this value is to my life. And there's things on there like family, friends, parenting, career, learning and development, self-care. And the second part of the questionnaire is, with those same values, rating how much you have lived your life in accordance with that value over the past week. So again, on a 0 to 10 scale, 0, not at all, 10, completely in line with my value. What it does is it really just highlights the discrepancies that some people have in terms of their values and the life that they're living. With some people, it makes them to realise that they don't have a balance in their life at all of their values. They're doing lots of one, but not anything to do with any of the other things that are important to them. Some people are almost engaging in a life where they're not living a life in accordance with any of their values, whether that be doing very little or even almost doing a lot of things that actually isn't important to them at all. So it can be a really useful exercise to do. And then treatment is about, once we've used the values of that particular client to identify some goals that are important for them to work towards and achieve, gradually moving towards them living a life more in accordance with their values, whilst also overcoming any blocks, any things that are getting in the way of them working towards those values. Some other ways to identify your more personal values, asking yourself some questions like, what would you like your legacy to be? What would you like people to remember you for when you're gone? Is it about always being a kind and caring person? Is it about standing up for inequality and injustice? Is it about being dependable, being fun, being joyful? What do you want people to talk about you in terms of, oh, Laura, I just absolutely love that she was always so full of life. Or I just really loved how she really stood up for what she believed in. What sort of things do you want people to say about you? And I say when you're gone, but also what do you want people to say about you now? Another question to ask yourself is, can you remember a time when you were last happy, content, fulfilled? What were you doing differently? How were you living your life? I think it's a really good start. If you start to notice yourself feeling quite routinely unhappy or quite routinely unfulfilled or lacking in purpose or focus, to really do some of these exercises, because it is probably a good indicator that potentially you're not living your life in accordance with your values for whatever reason that might be.
Such a good process to go through. Yeah, it's one thing to understand what your values are. And I think that's a really, pick some values. Are you actually, look at your diary, are you actually doing that? And yeah, I'm sure, there's been times when you get upset or you're triggered or you're feeling frustrated in life. That's probably a good sign to have a look at that and say, maybe I'm not matching my own values, and that's why I'm getting frustrated look into that a bit more. And there's a variety of reasons, right, why it's so difficult. How do you move towards aligning your life to what your values are, particularly if you're so far up one end and all your values are down the other end, in a way that supports you and your mental health?
And it's challenging, isn't it? Because sometimes it can feel like such a huge gap, such a huge difference to where you want to be, to, you know, where you're at that moment in time. And Rome wasn't built in a day. And you don't need to all of a sudden get to where you want to be within that day or the next day, in the next week. And I'm going to be honest, it is a continuous process. I am still checking in with my values and aligning my life as much as I possibly can. It is a commitment, a routine process to committing to this exercise of living a life that's important to you, and knowing that each and every single one of us have the same struggles, that we are all working towards living a happy and fulfilled life. And sometimes we don't really know how to do that, and this is one way that you can support yourself to start doing that. But all I say with my clients, and all I'd say to anybody that was like, where do I start? It only has to start small. Start with something that feels manageable. I do not want this to feel like another thing for you to do, another thing to add to your mother load, another stressor. I want this to be something that enriches your life, that nourishes you. So let's have a think about what small manageable changes can you make that are going to make a difference to you in your life. And I think it's so important to acknowledge that whilst the benefits of living a valued life are huge, living a valued life does not mean living an easy, happy all of the time life. And I think that's probably quite a common misconception as well. It can actually be quite challenging to live a valued life. It can push you to do things that are often completely out of your comfort zone. I'm going to give a personal example. It is one of my personal values to stand up against inequality and injustice. But in doing so, I open myself up to feel vulnerable, to critique from others, to breaking the status quo, to being sometimes the first person that is standing up for something that's wrong, even though it feels like everybody around me is saying the complete opposite. And that's challenging. And it goes against all of my good girl conditioning to just put up and shut up and just get on with it. But I feel so passionately about my value that I would push myself to speak up in front of anybody to address what I believe to be wrong and to put that right. I actually find public speaking really anxiety provoking. I always have done. But I do it because it's in line with my value, and that makes me feel so much more fulfilled than I could ever feel by avoiding some of those uncomfortable feelings. Another example, it's probably a really common example that a lot of certainly mothers will experience. So my value of being present with my son, with my husband, and it often leads me to feel feelings of boredom, overwhelm, frustration. Repeating the same activity over and over again is boring. It is boring. Experiencing what feels like the 100th tantrum of the day is frustrating and overwhelming at times. But it is so important to me that I am with him, that I am present with him, that I sit with those uncomfortable feelings in that moment. So that's just what I wanted to kind of highlight about how living a life with your values isn't always about feeling comfortable. It's about what feels right and important for you. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. Yes. Thank you so much for saying that. It's about making yourself proud, right? So even though it's uncomfortable to show up and read the same book again 10 times every night, it's important for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I imagine there are so many mamas going, yes, I hear you on that, you know. So something that you just mentioned there in the question about kind of, you know, how do we move more about kind of moving towards a valued life in a way that supports mental health? And I'm a mental health professional. I live and breathe managing mental health every single day. And so I really see and value the importance of looking after it. And just like we all have physical health, we all have mental health. And just like physical health, it can become unwell or unhealthy. It's a really well-known idea that in order to stay physically healthy, you need to engage in some form of healthy routines, such as eating a balanced diet, exercising so many times a week in line with your capabilities, resting. Mental health is no different. So it's something that we need to create healthy routines around to continue to manage it. And I really don't think we place enough importance on mental health and managing that as individuals, because society doesn't place as much importance on it. So how can you use your values in a way that supports your mental health? So what I'd always say is consider the behaviours and routines that you could maybe implement within your life, which is in line with your values, but it also supports your mental well-being. A really good example is I've mentioned the value of presence, so being in that moment. The more present you are, the more able you are to process your emotions and your experience in the here and now. So reflecting too much on the past and things that you've maybe done that you feel bad about or regretful for, all the mamas will be very familiar with feeling guilty about a way that we've behaved that we maybe wish that we'd not behaved like. And what that's doing is that's bringing that guilt, that feeling of sadness down, whatever that brings up for you, shame, into the present moment. Same with if you're worrying, what if the fears of the future, what's happening is that's bringing anxiety, fear, stress into your present moment. But neither of those experiences are happening in that moment. So what you're doing is you're bringing emotions that aren't relevant to your experience in that moment. Actually, I'm not saying that anxiety and sadness and guilt will not come up in each moment. But what we don't want to be doing is bringing experiences that are not going on in that moment in time to that moment, because it stops us from fully embracing and processing what we're going through at that time. Whilst engaging in whatever activities you're engaging within, whether it's with your friends, with your family, looking after yourself, be present with them as much as you can. I'm not here to be the presence police here, because it is actually very, very hard to be present all of the time. And you have to keep bringing your attention back to the present moment. And even the most practiced meditators struggle with being present all of the time. Bringing yourself back to the present moment can just allow you to get so much more out of that particular activity. And it takes practice. The mantra that I use on a daily basis in order to help me be more in alignment with my value of presence is only this in this moment. Only this in this moment. And it just helps to ground me back to what I'm doing at that time. It's also about making yourself your top priority. That feels really uncomfortable for a lot of people, especially mothers, because we feel that we should at least be putting our children first, if not everybody else's needs before our own, because that's good girl conditioning, right? What a good girl does. She does it all without looking like she's breaking a sweat. But actually, if you look after your own needs and your own well-being, actually what happens is everybody around you flourishes. Your children flourish, your family flourish, because being in the presence of somebody that's really looking after themselves is amazing. It really is. Always recommend building something into your day which is solely for you and your well-being. That, for a lot of people, will feel like a really huge step, especially if they're not doing anything at all at the moment. It doesn't have to be much. It might just be 5 minutes a day to do something for you, whatever feels right for you, whether that just taking a moment to stand outside for 5 minutes and Look at what you can see, listen to what you can hear, see what you can smell, see what you can touch. If there's anything in your immediate surroundings to touch, even if it's just the clothes that you're wearing, paying attention to the food that you're eating. If you're eating, it could be going out for a run, listening to a podcast, could be reading a book. It doesn't matter what it is. It's about honouring yourself and your own needs and your own well-being above other people. Knowing that you still care about other people. It doesn't mean that, I only care about myself, I don't care about other people. But knowing and looking after yourself, you are taking care of those other people around you. It takes commitment. It really, really does. And the hardest part is getting started. I promise you, if you start to do this, it just makes such a difference to your well-being and the well-being of others around you.
Yeah, it really does. I've definitely seen this benefit with my slow living philosophy. It's pretty much all of this, being present. Like you said, it can be uncomfortable being in the present moment because, when you slow down and you are actually present, all those thoughts of everything come flooding in. And I think that's why so many of us are busy, to distract ourselves from the things that we're not quite ready to face, probably.
That's such a really good point, Rochelle. And actually, it's like what we were talking about earlier about how confronting it can be to really stop and ask yourself how you're feeling or what's important to you, because it's a really common experience to want to avoid or run away from your feelings or your experience because it can feel really painful to sit with them. Yeah, it is. It is really, really challenging for some people to do that.
Yeah, and what you were saying at the start about going deeper with your priorities and saying like, my priority is friends or family, but then going deeper and saying, well, which friends and family? And then I'm sure like that, it takes a lot of courage to say, well, these friends and family, but maybe not so much these ones, because these ones trigger me. I love them, but and that can be really hard to admit, and there's a lot of shoulds going on there, and also like realizing that in yourself it's really brave, and that's probably where you're saying like not an easy path to walk when you try to live a more valued life because of those things.
Definitely. And again, it goes back to our conditioning, isn't it? I should love everybody. I should love all of my family members. I should, like you said, I should be able to get on with everybody. I've said these same things to myself. I just don't quite get it. Why am I not connecting with these people? Yeah. And actually, what we're going through as the world at the moment, and obviously in the UK we're still locked down. It's really given a lot of people, myself included, time to really reflect on what is important in their life. And we can get into this habit of just keeping going. You're on the treadmill. You're just doing those routine activities that you just do every day because that feels easier to just keep doing rather than to stop and think about it, almost even just stopping and thinking about if that activity or that person, serves you in your life, enriches your life. Where the lockdown has meant that actually a lot of people stopped a lot of routines that they were involved with, or certain people that they were used to seeing every single week just as part of what they just got used to doing. And actually what it allows you to do is to recognise, well, what am I actually getting out of that? And I just mentioned, how does it serve me? How does it enrich my life? And for me, if it's not something that you have to do because you haven't got a choice in the matter, because sometimes there are things like that, and that's what I was talking about some things outside of our control that sometimes mean we can't always live completely a life in line with our values. But actually recognising that this doesn't work for me, and I've got the power to choose to not do that, or to step away from maybe a relationship or a friendship or a family member that just isn't working for you. Because for me, if it's not enriching your life and you can do that,
that's right,
do it. But it's hard, it's challenging.
It's all goes back to like being okay with, if that's your feelings, that too, like your feelings matter too.
Yeah, definitely.
And there are some times in our lives, like where I imagine our values significantly change in a pretty rapid way, like the pandemic, for example. And then obviously becoming a parent. I know that, having particularly your first baby, the world just completely shrinks. You and I call that matrescence, that transformation of motherhood. But I'd really love to talk just briefly before we go about your take on the change, when those changes in life can become like a bit of a deeper issue.
Yeah, so I can totally identify with the shift in values when you become a parent, and matrescence we know about, and a lot of your listeners will know about the transition that we go through when we become mothers and through motherhood. Our matrescence supports us and almost guides us to find what's important to us now. It's like all of a sudden what mattered before doesn't matter the same anymore, and that can be so challenging because it feels like our sense of self, who we knew ourselves to be, has changed. Not even just overnight, in an instant when your baby's born. I think for me it was when I remember being in the birthing pool, and I remember saying to my husband in between contractions, oh my God, we are going to be having a baby imminently. I mean, I've been pregnant for 9 months. You'd have thought it'd have hit me already, right? But it was in that moment for me that I think my matrescence started, because I just had a realization that very soon our lives would never be the same again. And obviously nothing can prepare you for the experience of motherhood. But yeah, it's an incredible experience which really brings everything that you knew to be true to you into question. And that is one huge shift, one huge experience there. As you and some of your listeners will know, matrescence is a completely normal life transition. And with that transition comes intense emotional experiences, comes thoughts, comes questions. It is not a problem. It is not a mental health problem. So I think our society has done, not only mothers, I think all of us, everybody, a huge disservice in not having matrescence as something that is commonly talked about and commonly acknowledged, as commonly as adolescence is talked about as one example. I believe that actually a lot of mothers have been misdiagnosed actually as having something wrong with their mental health, when in actual fact what they've been experiencing has been matrescence. The medical profession like to put things into boxes and categories, and it's helpful in the fact that it allows us to do research and to find out what works for certain groups of people. I'm not knocking it completely here, because it does serve its function and its purpose. But the problem with that is, because we like to put, the medical profession likes to put things into boxes or categories, when we don't have matrescence as part of our vocabulary, as part of something that is well known as a life transition, we get put into another category that often doesn't fit our experience. We've got a lot of work to change that, and I really, really want to be part of changing that, because it needs to change. But whilst matrescence is not a mental health problem, and strong experiences, strong emotional experiences are part of matrescence, are often part of matrescence, it is possible to experience a very common mental health condition or problem whilst also experiencing matrescence. It might be that our transition into motherhood or through motherhood contributed to some of these experiences or led to their development, but it could be for another reason as well, because any life transition or stressful life experience can lead to the development of a difficulty with our mental health or well-being. So I just really want to stress that whilst when you're going through matrescence, you can experience some of these difficulties, but it's not because you're going through matrescence. It's so many things can contribute to changes in your mental health and well-being. There is diagnostic criteria out there for common mental health problems such as depression, anxiety disorders such as obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and generalized anxiety, and some of these are more common in sort of a postnatal period than others. But personally, I'm neither a qualified psychiatrist to be able to diagnose any of my clients, but also we don't all fit into nice, neat boxes anyway. So I prefer the idea that if you are struggling with your mood or your anxiety, so much so that it is stopping you from living the life that you want to lead, that you wouldn't even know where to start in how to live a valued life because you are so low, so overwhelmed, so anxious, then absolutely get some professional help for that, because nobody needs to struggle alone. And in the UK, there's a number of support services, both within and outside the NHS, for people that are struggling with their mental health and well-being. And I'm assuming that it's the same in Australia as well, Rochelle, is that right?
Yeah, we have Medicare provides some therapy options, and you can also go privately if you want to go direct.
Brilliant, fantastic, yeah. And, if anybody within the UK wanted to contact me about what services are available within the UK to be able to support these difficulties, I am always there to respond to my direct messages. So please do contact me about that. I won't go into detail right now because I know you've got listeners all over the place. So anybody in the UK can contact me about that. There's loads of help and support out there. And really, the professionals are there to help support you to overcome those blocks that are getting in the way of you living your best, your most fulfilled, your most valued life. That is totally what they are there for. And I just want to add that it is in no way a reflection on you as an individual or you as a mother if you struggle with your mental health. Anyone can struggle. It does not matter if on paper you have the perfect family, the perfect home, the perfect career, or what background you are from. Nobody is immune to struggling. So I really, really want to take that away from this message. You are not alone. It's very, very common, and there is nothing wrong with you because you are having these experiences.
I think that's particularly important to note because of this patriarchal motherhood or system that we're in. It can feel really unsafe to feel that you're not coping and then to admit it because of this idea that, maybe your children will be taken away, or maybe you're failing, or who knows what will happen. I know that there's a lot of misconceptions about mental health and mental unwellness and all of that, and it's not the case. I've definitely seen experiences where people are really, really supported through these things now. It's not the dark ages anymore.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right. We've come a long way in terms of reducing the stigma of mental health compared to where we were at. But we're not there yet. We're totally not there yet. And you're right. A lot of people feel a lot of shame around these experiences and have a lot of fear around the consequences of fully opening up about their experience. Yeah. I see it every single day, people holding on to their feelings because they're so fearful of what might happen if they truly open up about how they feel, whether that be something such as, my children are going to be taken away from me, people are going to think I'm crazy, people are going to think there's something wrong with me, and I suppose
differently.
Absolutely, people are going to treat me differently. They're going to see me differently, and so we continue to portray this view that we're all okay. And so many of us do that, but actually, so many of us are struggling inside. Really silencing how we're feeling and creating so much of a bigger problem for ourselves. And what we need to do is just show that we all the same, we're all human, we all have vulnerabilities, we all have insecurities. None of us have it all together at all. And just to be real about it, because actually when you are, that inspires another mother, another woman to, I want to speak my truth too. And that's how we break the cycle of self-silencing.
Absolutely. I know so many times when you do share something, you can almost physically see that sigh of relief coming from whoever you're talking to. And they go, that happens to me, or I feel that way too.
Yeah.
And, so it's really special to let people feel more comfortable to open up. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been such a lovely chat. I really appreciate everything that you've shared.
Oh, I've absolutely loved it. Thank you so much for having me. Just a few final things I just wanted to say before I go to your listeners. You know, I know a lot of them are mothers. I just really want to say, do you know what? You're doing your best, and that's all you can do, and that is good enough. Your best will change from day to day, moment to moment, for a variety of reasons, some of which that is out of your control. You're doing your best in each moment, and that is enough. And just remember that none of us are immune to these struggles and difficulties. That mama that you're comparing yourself to has her own insecurities and struggles, and probably compares herself to other mamas too. Just remember there's only one you, and that makes you truly unique and special. And whilst living a valued life is not easy, it is a continuous commitment, but I promise you it is oh so rewarding. And if we lived in a world where all of the mamas actually were able to identify their own values and live in a way that suited them and their family, regardless of expectation, just what a wonderful world that would be.
It really would be such an amazing world. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Where can we find you online? And I'll leave all the links to everything down in the show notes, of course, before we say goodbye.
Yeah, so I am at Laura Greenwood Therapy on Instagram and on Facebook. So if you want to connect with me in any way, I would love to hear from any of you, whether it be about something that I've talked about today or something that I talk about in some of my posts, or if you're just unsure really what you need right now, reach out. That's what I'm here for. And yeah, I've got some exciting things coming up around supporting mums to help them to identify their own values of what it means to be a mum and a woman, and helping them to move more towards in line with that. But really, what I'm mainly there to do is to provide what you need. I am really keen to hear you, to hear what you need right now, and see what I can do to be able to provide that for you at this time. Just reach out and I'll respond as soon as I can.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. I love following you on Instagram. It's a really nice place to be. So thank you. That's it for another episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you'd like to connect further, the show notes from today's episode, including all the social links and free resources, are over on my website, howtoliveslow.com/podcast. Have a beautiful week ahead, and I'll speak with you again soon.